I'm Paddy.
Christian.
This is Christian. Those of you who don't know, Christian is our head of design here at Streamtime, and we're stoked to have him on today's webinar. It's the last one for the month, and we're going to be looking at Streamtime work in progress, essentially. What have we been working on? What's just been released? What's gone out the door? Most of you are probably aware we released some updates last week, so we'll take a look at that. We'll also be taking a look at what's currently in design, what's going to be in development soon, and looking ahead to 2020. So thinking about the year and what we kind of have in mind for our product and where we're headed. So stay tuned for the end to catch all of that. But just to bring you up to speed on who Christian is, he's been at Streamtime for about 14 months. He was last on a webinar in October, so some of you might recognize him from then. But he leads the design efforts here across the whole business. So every piece of functionality that gets released into Streamtime, it's been researched, designed, ideated by Christian and Sarah as well, who works alongside Christian. But Christian is instrumental in essentially making Streamtime look as good as it does, continue to look and work as good as it does as well. So big ups to Christian.
Good to be here, Paddy. Excited to show everyone what we've been working on.
Awesome.
So yeah, should we get into it?
Yeah, let's do it. So diving in, first of all, let's start with what we've just released. So, actually, before we do go ahead, just some quick housekeeping. Everyone, it seems like you've already worked out how to chat to us in that chat menu in that chat bar on the right-hand side. Feel free to drop any questions in there as we go. We'll come back to those at the end when we have some time. And that's about it. All right, cool. So first of all, let's talk about what we've just released into the product. So in our last release, a massive part of that release was the job timeline, which has been asked for quite a while now. And we've kind of had, different versions of the timeline floating around the walls of the office here for a long time as well. So it's been awesome to finally be able to deliver that to our clients. Do you want to tell us a bit about why we built the job timeline?
Yeah, sure. So earlier in the year, we did a lot of research around how we could improve our current scheduling features. We found that a lot of our customers, when they're first planning their jobs, so this is way before they've booked in any resources, they're trying to visualize their job plan and then get those timings of their job plan out of Streamtime to share with their clients. So they're trying to win new business, or they're trying to send a proposal out, and as part of that quoting process, they want to basically supply a timeline to stick to, and they want to communicate what they need from the client and when. So specifically, we're kind of talking about project managers, account managers, or producers. And what we found is what they're trying to do in these use cases wasn't really a scheduling function, it was a planning function. So they wanted to share that plan with the client, get the plan approved, and then they'd work in Streamtime to actually schedule the resources, book people in, and create to-dos. And we did the scheduling part really well, got great scheduling functionality in the app already. We'd even rebuilt the to-do schedule to make it more efficient and improve its performance. But what we weren't doing really well was the planning bit. And that meant that our customers were going outside of Streamtime to use other tools like Team Gantt or Tom's Planner, or even just simply using Google Sheets to create lo-fi timelines. And this was totally counterproductive, right? Because we as a product exist to make life easier and more efficient for our customers, but now they're doubling up on their workload, they were having to pay for multiple software, so on and so forth. So we decided to create the timeline feature in Streamtime so they could do it in Streamtime and all their data lived in Streamtime.
Cool.
That's kind of why we did it.
Awesome. Well, let me show you everyone how it works quickly, and then we can talk about the benefits of that timeline itself.
Yeah.
So, cool. Over here, we've got Streamtime. We've got our jobs page. This will be super familiar for you guys. If you haven't kind of had the chance to check things out recently, you'll notice now that we've got a new tab at the top here of the job, which is our timeline tab. So clicking across there is giving you a really nice visual display of that job. Obviously, you've got this timeline, which is showing you some dates. It's broken up here by items. You can see that they're colored by the status, and also we can see any phases here as well. So phases was something that we released in the previous release before the timeline. So obviously that was something we wanted to put out before we introduced the timeline, knowing that it would kind of be useful to surface this here too. So
you get a real it's lightweight, but it's a great visual view of your job. And you've obviously got the ability to export those timings as PDFs once you're happy with your plan. But Paddy, maybe we go through the different functionality of the job itself.
Yeah, brilliant. Cool. So of the timeline?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So things we can do in here is obviously we will want to be able to change dates. So it's not just a visualization of the timing of the job, but it allows us to actually plan out the timings of the job, which was a key thing that you said people were doing elsewhere.
Yeah.
So you might start with your job in the job details area, thinking about resources, time, how much you're going to want to charge for certain things. Once that's quoted and you actually need to pull together a timeline, it's easy to come in here and just grab each end of those items and pull them out based on the dates that you can see here too. So it's useful at a glance to kind of see where the job is at, given the color of these items is indicative of the status that they hold.
Yeah.
You can see this one's completed.
And we know that things in agencies and in studios, things change really quickly. Things move around all the time. So we wanted to create a timeline that's like super simple to use and easy. Just if things have changed, it's quick and easy to just drag your timings out, change those timings, and then you've kind of got this current plan of your job. So if you're a visual person, you prefer visualizing your job as well, it's perfect for you.
And you're able to zoom out and in there too to kind of see things in greater detail or see the project together.
Yep. And then we also introduced project milestones. So you've got the ability to plot milestones along your timeline. So you basically know what those key dates are that you're going to hit, and essentially it's going to help you never miss a deadline.
Awesome. You can see a summary of those in the top right-hand corner there when the next one's coming up, and you'll see those plotted along the top of the timeline there. We'll also pull those into the summary PDF as well, so you can take the timeline out into either a summary, which gives you a nice breakdown of all the dates on the project, when things are going to be starting and delivered by, and those invoices and job milestones as well. We can also pull out an export timeline of the timeline itself, which is just the visual view, which is nice to share with the client if you want. Cool.
Yeah.
So awesome.
That's kind of it. Nice and lightweight. Some interesting functionality which will help you improve your workflow, and I think the ability to get those timings out of Streamtime as PDFs and then be able to share them with your clients, or just literally have a snapshot of what you've agreed to with your clients so that you can hold them accountable if things change is great.
Cool. Why don't we talk about some of the challenges that came with building the timeline, Christian? Obviously, it was something that we worked super hard over for so long. We conducted lots of research. Do you want to dive into some of the challenges?
Yeah, I think with any of these features that we're introducing, we're always constrained by time, and we're constantly weighing up time versus value. So how long do we want to spend on something versus how much value does it deliver to our customers? So we could spend a whole year making an amazing detailed Gantt chart feature, but it wouldn't give value to our customers because we're developing it for a year and they're not using it for a year. So we intentionally put out a lightweight version, and then the hope is to iterate on that, get loads of feedback, and then improve it as we go. So, it's kind of at its most basic at the moment, but there's big plans kind of moving forward.
Yeah, anything we can kind of give away in terms of where we're thinking this might head?
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit before about how quickly things change in the studio or in an agency. So what we want to introduce here is the idea of dependencies. So if for instance, you have items grouped in a phase and that phase, the dates of that phase shift out, you should be able to drag that phase and all the items below it follow and in sync. Also, you might want to set up dependencies between some of the different items or even different phases. So you can't start something until something else is finished. So if time pushes out and that shifts the whole timeline by a few days, you basically just want to move one item and everything will follow in sync. So those dependencies are something we're looking at. I think we've identified that sharing the timeline we've got a big opportunity. We actually are looking at integrating with Google Sheets. So you can export the timeline out of Streamtime into Google Sheets, and that means you're able to firstly collaborate with your client on it. because Google Sheets obviously has that inbuilt sharing functionality. Google Sheets offers you an amazing way to print out your timeline really easily if you're actually looking to physically print it onto A4 or A3. And also Google Sheets means you can format it in the way you like. If you've got certain brand colors, then you can change the colors, so on and so forth. So Google Sheets offers quite a lot of power and flexibility. Permissions is an interesting one we're looking at. So we know that some business owners lock off their job page to the users because they don't want to see financials, which is fair enough. But it also means at the moment they don't have current access to the timeline. So we're looking at what we could do around that. And finally, just going back to that export function, we know that some users have items on the job plan that they don't actually want to export to a timeline PDF. Might be like a couple of items that denote the brief or account management that they don't actually want to put on their timeline. So the ability to actually be able to set the visibility of certain items to true or false. So when you export it, you're kind of exporting the plan you want. So that's a couple of things we've got in the works, but we definitely welcome any feedback. We obviously want to make the experience most useful for our customers. So if you do have any feedback, shoot it through to us. And what's the best way to do that, Pat?
Straight through. There's a help button in Streamtime. You'll find it in your menu. It's down the bottom. Lets you start up a chat with us, and you can shoot through anything there. Say hi. We're on the other end of that. Everything gets passed straight through to design and product. So don't be a stranger. If you've got something to add, it certainly gets heard. The other thing we released last week was some slight improvements around priorities. So again, because this one was almost a bit more subtle, it wasn't so much a new feature in the product or a new area, might have gone a little under noticed. What have we done in priorities and why?
So priorities. So as a product, we are really great at studio management. If you think about the lifespan of a job, we do really well at the beginning of the process of that job, planning your job, turning that plan into a quote, sending that quote out, getting that quote approved, and then allocating resources against that job. And then at the end of the job, we do really well because it's easy to invoice the time that's being tracked and use that data to report on how things went. But actually in the middle, when the job's kind of actually in progress, we don't really do anything apart from tracking time. This to-dos are complete. So if you're a project manager trying to run your job, we're not that useful to you in that instance. And that means, again, our customers are turning to different tools to manage their projects. So we see them using software like Basecamp or Trello. That means another tool in their software stack. That's another subscription to pay. It's another piece of software to onboard their team into, and it's doubling up their workload as well while you track time with us, but you manage your project somewhere else. So priority boards are our Streamtime take on a Kanban method of project management. Kanban method, think about the way Trello works. You basically have a board, you have columns on your board, and you move tasks between those columns to track the progress of your project. So it gives you a great holistic view on who's working on what or what the state of the project is at any time. And so we created our priorities feature from an internal 2-day hackathon about a year ago. Functionality was really basic, but as a proof of concept, our customers loved it. And we're really excited about the potential that priorities holds. And that's something we're working on right now, so up until Christmas. So the update that went out last week is really just paving the way for the upcoming revamp of our priority section. And this is basically where we're going to marry Streamtime Smarts with Kanban methodology. That's kind of it. That's why we did it.
It's exciting. Awesome. And so in terms of what those new releases were, already you'd notice a bit of polish on how those boards look, what you can, or at least how they present themselves. They're a bit cleaner, a bit nicer, a bit more legible. We can see that now we can actually rename a board as well, which is cool. And the reason we can rename a board is because now you can have multiple boards. So each user can set up different boards for different purposes, and you can actually see everyone else's boards. So as you can see here, this is your priorities homepage. Everyone else's boards include retainers, new business pipeline, dev jobs. Means anyone can set up one board for the studio and everyone can have access to that really easily, which is really cool. So from here, of course, we can still, delete boards, remove boards if we want, create multiple boards. And, the classic priorities functionality. We're creating new columns. We're renaming those columns. We're adding these job cards to columns, which is cool. So we've talked about where we want to go with priorities, or we talked about setting up for the future of priorities. So can you give us a bit more insight into what that might look like?
Sure. So as I said, we're really excited about the potential that the priorities section holds, because when you start to marry Streamtime Smarts with that Kanban way of working, things get really interesting, and we think we can provide a huge amount of value to for our customers. So back in August, we ran a week-long design sprint with the team here in Sydney, and a few really interesting things came out of that. We actually tested some of those prototypes with our customers, and they're really excited about that too. So basically what we want to do is ensure, so at the moment you can only add job cards into your columns. So that's great for some certain boards, but in other, if you actually want to run your job, you want to actually add items, say notes, checklists. You might even want to embed files into your card. So all that functionality is something we're looking at, and then also being able to share the boards internally and setting access permissions. So I might want to create a board that only you and I can see.
Yep.
But we might want other boards where everyone in the company can see. So putting those shareable settings onto the boards would be great. One thing that came out of the research into how people were using priority boards in this design sprint was that they offered so much flexibility that some people were simply unsure of how to use them. So we're looking at introducing predefined templates, and some of these templates will have the idea of, say, smart totals on the column. So if you have a WIP pipeline board, the columns would total the budgets that you set in the cards. So just making it much more easier and efficient, introducing automation where possible, and just making your life easier, because we know that we can automate a lot of the manual work that you'd otherwise be doing, and that allows you to get great access to great insights really quickly. Finally, everyone asks for it. We haven't done it yet, but reordering the columns has kind of become a bit of a joke here. Sorry guys, we haven't managed to do it yet.
It's not that we don't want to.
We haven't had time to do it. But basically, being able to reorder the columns so you could drag with client across here, or place it wherever in the column you want. So that's something we'll be also doing soon.
That's probably what I'm most excited for, to be completely honest. Not having to rebuild my priorities boards and just being able to move them around.
Yeah, it's coming.
Awesome. So that's where we're currently at with what we've just released and setting up for the next couple of releases, which is super exciting. But what else is coming up next, Christian? What haven't we shown yet?
Yeah, so priority boards is kind of the thing we're working on, and that's in development. But in design right now, there's lots of exciting stuff coming up. The most immediate thing that we're working on is collaboration. So how might we facilitate collaboration into our users' workflow within Streamtime? Why do we want to do that? Well, we did another research stream earlier in the year around our users' current workflows, and we came across user stories like, as a project manager, I want to save important information for a job in one place so we can always find it later, or as a designer, I want to alert my project manager when I finish a task so they know when to check it, or I want to be notified of things to do or when things change. Basically, notifications so that the project can run efficiently, and being able to store files in Streamtime so everything's in the same place. Again, it's a case of people are using Basecamp to go and do this stuff, and we want to let them do everything in Streamtime so they're all working in one place, it's efficient, and there's no doubling up and nothing gets lost. So that is what we're working on.
Awesome.
I guess the benefits of that, as I said, like it's obviously a highly requested feature that people ask for us all the time. In those larger agencies, it's a must-have, but it basically means that projects will run more smoothly, and there's going to be more accountability and transparency within the business, which is great. So basically better organization and more efficiency.
Awesome. We do have a couple of little snapshots that we can show you guys today as well. Sneaky peek. Sarah is our internal designer who's done heaps of the work on this collaboration, and she's advised us to offer a massive disclaimer with this as well. So
it's early days,
it's early days, but we love showing this kind of stuff to you guys anyway. So I'm just going to pull this one open. So this is a screen here showing, obviously in the back you've got a ghosted view of your to-do screen, but the reason it's ghosted is because we've got this, almost like collapsed side panel, which could potentially be that menu that you guys know so well, making it a little bit easier to navigate around the product. And what's highlighted there is this activity tab. Christian, do you want to tell us just what we can see in that activity tab?
So the activity tab is basically showing all the activity that's currently taking place within the whole system. So you might comment on a priority board, or you might comment on an item. You might mention one of your colleagues, so they get a notification that they need to go to a certain part of the product to work on something or check on something, or be notified that a task being set. So as I said, it's basically about increasing transparency and accountability within the product, which leads to much better outcomes for your project and for your business.
And it's probably reasonable to say that we're not trying to recreate tools like Slack, which
not at all. I think if people are familiar with the way, say, commenting works in Google in G Suite, so if you're using commenting in Google Sheets or Google Docs, or if you use tools like Notion or Dropbox Paper, just the way you can mention and comment on certain things, it's definitely not trying to recreate Slack. Not trying to create a complete chat engine within Streamtime, but it's a really efficient way of working.
Awesome, cool. And this activity center here is providing you with these notifications. I think what Sarah was explaining is that the idea is that you could, receive you could choose where you receive these notifications, and what you have a bit of control about what you receive notifications about as too, so that you're not flooded with, or
no one wants to be spammed by that.
Exactly. So
emails every 3 minutes.
Making sure that everything you see there is something that actually is relevant and matters to you.
Yeah.
Another screen we can show you is this one here, and similar.
This is very disclaimer, very early days.
Very early days. As you can see, what we're kind of ideating with at the moment is this idea of a third tab across the job page here for activity. Before we looked at details and timeline, so could we add another one where we can store everything that's happening on this job? And as you can see, it looks like there's conversation happening there, so that's one place where you can store communication or notes, or just keep up to date on the latest in this project. You can look at all those messages or things that are must know. Maybe you could mark a message or something that is important for this project, like starring a message or something. And any mentions there too. And then you've got files there on the right hand side as well. So having that as a place where you can kind of come back to keep important things about this job, like a brief, any early concepts, references, these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to add there?
No, that's great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So stop sharing that before everyone keeps taking screenshots to hold against us later. Cool. So what else is there?
Another immediate thing that's coming out that we've been working on is projected profit. So we have loads of great data that you are constantly inputting into the system, and we want to use that data to create insights which we can surface that help you run your business better. So projected profit's a really interesting one. And we've actually created a bit of an algorithm that is going to surface a planned and projected profit margin on the jobs where we can. So this means you can compare what you've planned to make on the job, so a percentage based around your cost rates and planned sell, alongside a prediction of where you'll end up at the end of the job based on how your cost and sell is tracking as time goes on. So it provides a really great, valuable insight, which will hopefully help account managers and business owners run their jobs more profitability in their jobs, and ultimately that obviously flows into a more profitable business. So watch out for a soft release on this in the coming weeks. We're actually going to tag it with a little beta tag, so you can actually choose to turn it on. If you do choose to turn it on, then we're really interested to kind of get your feedback, see if our algorithm is actually working and works for you. So that's a really great one. And I guess when you do see it, it's most accurate when there's lots of data. So the more you use the system, the better the projections get. And then so those are the kind of two next camps of the rank, I guess. And then lastly, we've been basically planning our roadmap for 2020 and beyond. Many of our customers are going to be familiar with our public-facing roadmap. I know that the CS team directs a lot of our customers to that. That's a place, if you're not familiar with it, where you can see what we're working on and what's coming up next. It's also a great place for you to give us feedback and suggestions. So I'm sure you can put a link in the description to if you've never seen that. But disclaimer, at the moment it's a little messy, so we're actually going to relaunch it with all the upcoming work for next year and beyond, and that's all going to be written in a consistent manner that's really easy to understand and digestible. So that product planning and the relaunch of roadmap is something we're also working on, and that will give all our customers a really great insight into what we hope to achieve in 2020. But to summarize what we're working on, there's basically 4 different categories of work. So better business management, so how can we help you manage your business better? Foresight, how can we surface useful insights based on your historical data that will help you plan for both the short term and the long term, so things like projected profit margin, which we just talked about. Better business models, how can we help make your business more profitable? And mental health, how can we help you keep your staff happy and healthy, not just your business? So yeah, lots of exciting stuff on there.
Lots in there. Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to the webinar or coming along.
No problems, mate.
You like it?
I'll come back anytime you want.
Awesome. Certainly got a face for webinars and a voice for radio, which is a perfect combination. Awesome. So guys, we're getting to the end of our session. We can do a quick Q&A. If anyone has any questions, I'm just going to do a quick scroll back through. Sarah was asking, how does the timeline work with designers to do, i.e. self-scheduling? Christian kind of touched on that earlier. So the job timeline as it exists in the job page is more from a planning point of view. So setting dates and start and due dates for the deliverables of the project. So for those items, obviously they're the things that the team will be working on. So the team who is assigned to those tasks, whether it's a concept development phase, they'll see when that's due, and that's directly related to the dates that you set on that planning page. But when you're in the timeline itself, you're not really creating those tasks for team members, those to-dos. That all happens in the schedule. So there is a relationship, but it's more around when things are starting and being due and just keeping an eye on that. But it's much more, as Christian was saying, for project managers, account managers to understand where the project is currently at and what's coming up next, and make sure that there's a one-stop shop to keep everyone on the same page with that, clients included. Cool. Looks like we answered Sarah's other question, and I can't see anything else coming through there. So that looks like about it. Thanks everyone for tuning in again. Hopefully you all took something away from today's session. We love being able to have these sessions with you and sharing what we're working on. So if you have any feedback on anything that we've released or anything you've seen today, thoughts and ideas, please just share them with us, as we saw before, just in the help menu in Streamtime. And we'll always be grateful for any feedback there.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to any feedback that you guys have, especially around the timeline, and just helps us improve the product for you guys moving forward. So
awesome.
Paddy, thanks for having me.
Thanks again for coming on, Christian. And once more, thanks for tuning in, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you. See you.